environment. I think that's another area. I think under that you have climate action. Like that, I have identified 4 or 5 MDG, Billion Development Goals, that will support the philosophy of, global humanity or global peace or communal harmony. And again, I remember, in India, he talked about 120 crores of Hindus, 115 in India. Recently, you might have heard of the controversy related to Sanatana Dharma. I was not knowing. I asked a very senior, yogi sort of person. I asked, what exactly is Sanatana Dharma? Tell me. Sanatana, Malayalam people, we can understand something that stands. Something like sustainable. Sanatana, Dharma, some duties. Then I asked, can you please elaborate those things? What is this Sanatana Dharma? It was not immediately possible. As usual, we have this guru. I just took the help of Google and ChatGPT. Then I started reading. Then I realized that what all you look for, this global peace, global harmony, etc., in terms of, integrity, honesty, love, peace, care, mutual help, all these things, those 6 or 7, critical words, that forms the essence of Sanatana Dharma. Similarly, when I read Quran, I have seen all these words and all these promotions, and I have not read much of Mahabharata and all, but it is there in as per Sanatana Dharma. And I am sure even in Christianity also same thing. Our bishop may be able to correct me. So all these things are converging us to one point, one line of global peace and harmony. But still, why we fail? And I am sure 3 faith systems I mentioned. In Muslims, very often there are occasions of terrorism, this, that and all. But honestly, I can tell you, 99% of the Muslims are peace-loving, loving, caring, helping, caring, sharing and all. But there are few people who are too much addicted to their religious beliefs and hunger for embracing the heaven. Some people used to say, myself, my wife and my children alone should go to heaven, some sort of feeling. That create problems. So I analyzed why. Then I realized that it starts from that madrasa learning, which is a defective system. So it is important that either the religious leaders or the rulers should take adequate care to remove such poisons from the society. I have not heard anything from the Christian community. Most of them are peace-loving and more progressive, more educated. In Muslims, the education level is much less. That may be one of the reasons. And Hindus, even though the education level is a little bit less, I am not observing, these instances of terrorism or violence and all that. So what is important for us is to identify the sources of, this violence, too much of greed, right from the school itself. Yesterday I was at Trichy for NEP 2020 conclave, a document generated after 35 years of time of a change by a team of people like Kasturi Rangan and 14 people. It's a fantastic document. Why it is fantastic for me? I said fantastic. As a professor and as a vice chancellor, I always consider that. Most of the ailments or illness of the society is primarily because of the inadequacy of the educational system in terms of the content, the content delivery, the way we are developing the student, our hunger is to produce A plus people or doctors or engineers without considering his character level, mental, spiritual level. All the time we disregarded, and ultimately we produced people who are rich, theory wise, and then they ultimately end up or make themselves as highly selfish people. Now, while I was a vice chancellor, I remember I came from a very poor family. I asked my senior professors, we should have a competition by name Sadguna and Sadguru. We started. And what I remember, specifically now is the first batch of Sadguna students. I was watching every student came with the father and the grandfather and the grandmother for receiving the award. And when they get the award, they go to the father and they place it over there and get the blessing. That I have seen in North India only, not in this part of the world. If you train them properly, either from the mother or from the teacher, right from the young age, if you get proper training, spiritual, mental, emotional, IQ, EQ, all such domains, I am sure some of the ailments can be corrected. I am not taking much of my time. One more point I must say. In the beginning I said, if I have become something, it is because of my mother. Realizing that reality, I asked my professors, we should have a Golden Mother Award. We started that. There was a lot of opposition. I am a person who believes that, if there is a good boy or a girl, definitely behind that there is a very good mother. So the most important thing we have to consider in our society today should be, we have BA, BCom, BBA, so many degrees, programs, a journey, KG to PG, 25 years of journey. Have we ever taken efforts? First for the children, as I said. Second, for creating a good mother. What makes a good mother? A good mother makes a good family, not only that, a good society and ultimately a good nation through creating good people. If you are identifying, aberrant boys and girls, definitely you know that you will be ending up with a bad family. So we should also promote the concept of tailoring quality mothers, training quality mothers, or giving much more importance to mothers. I am not talking about the word women, mothers. So that is another way of improving our thought of how best we can have a better interfaith, ending up with a better global humanity and communal harmony. I don't want to stand before you more. With these few words, from what I heard about these organizers and the content over here, I am sure this is the need of the hour, and this sort of exercise to bridge the gap between the faiths and to remove the disparity, and in promoting the harmony of people to the level of Vasudeva Kudumbakam or global humanity. These sort of exercises will definitely be useful. I inaugurate this session and I wish all success to these organizers.
Just let me add, or rather, make it more digestible to us, that, or rather, let these questions may prick our minds for our discussions, that our Professor Emeritus Dr. Abdul Salam sir, the former Vice Chancellor, explained a lot of things in a very, very, emotional, or rather better way, that touching from his own heart and from his own family, referring from his parents, especially of his mother. And I think that the prevailing question that he said that although all these religions or cultures are having great goals and ideas, and he asked that why and where we fail. So that question should be there. Are we failure or are we not? And if a failure, why? Or how can we correct more and more? He also spoke about, without using the technical terms, inclusive, exclusive, or pluralistic way and manner of approaching religions and universal culture, but he also referred that. And also asked, the play or the gameplay of between religion and politics and what all way that we are using it. Of course, his concern about Golden Mother Award, this sort of value-based educational system during our KG to PG 25 years, we are discussing the same thing in all educational field, whether it is, science, social analysis, even medicine, or even theological discussions. We are having now this educational policy 2020, to submit it all and to come up to, mark and all. But still, the question is there. Are we developing the Sanadana in the sense, not only the Sanadana Dharma in a religious perspective, rather, are we developing the Sadgunas? Are we ready to develop these sort of gunas in our educational system? Especially referred that usually in North India, I was also in North India for many years for my studies and while I was doing my ministry as a bishop, they are all students. They come and touch your feet, especially in the morning, receiving your blessings. And, since Dr. Abdul Salam referred to Modi ji, I'm also referring that I have met him few times because he was the CM of Gujarat and I was a bishop over there. So each time, when we met, he has no problem to bend down, please, bend down and trying to touch the feet and say namaste. That is the culture of our land, our nation. So, it doesn't mean that others have no way of respecting each other. Of course, they have the manners of loving and respecting each other, undoubtedly. But, show it in some lands, giving a good shake hand. In Europe, for example, in Germany, there you are really chilled by always it's a minus temperature. So when you come from outside to inside, you give a huge hug and rub your, back side of your body to make him warm. So different methods are there. However, keep these things in mind. Thanks for the wonderful words. You said everything, dear, and your presence itself is great for us. And now we have two more presenters, and they need the what do you call it, the PPT. So we asked to, can we sit down?
Sir, there is a slight change in the seniority, and SS Lal sir has to go urgently for some domestic commitments. So I request the moderators to take his name as a priority basis. And Dr. SS Lal is a world-renowned health expert a columnist and a guest speaker on various visual media. He is a key member in various advisory councils of the World Health Organization. Sir, with all respect, I request you to kindly take over. No, sir, do you have any PPT?
Can we start? Good morning. And dignitaries on the now everyone of the dais. So I would like to finish this presentation 10 minutes because that's the time given to me. And I should thank J. Sadur or John Samuel, my friend, for allowing me to make the presentation first, because ideally I should have followed him, because he is presenting generally on sustainable development goals, and I'll be confining to health. I'm audible? Yeah. I can see a lot of people from other parts of the country or other parts of the world. Being a citizen of this city, I would like to welcome all of you to the city. I just came back from US yesterday evening. Partly I live in the US also. And but I'm from the city. I had all my education in the city, most of my education except my PhD. And so my presentation, it's a scientific presentation, but I'll make it short. See, all the important aspects of my presentation come from my experience living in multiple countries as a UN or World Health Organization staff member. And I have lived in this city. I lived in Delhi. I lived in a city called East Timor, Dili, the capital of East Timor, which used to be the least developed country at that time when I worked there. And I lived in Switzerland, Cambodia, and now I partly live in the US. So what I have seen living in different countries and traveling to many underdeveloped poor countries, what I have seen is that people are the same everywhere. Only the environments and backgrounds and genetics make them different. So I am trained as a medical doctor. I don't sit and practice in a clinic these days. I was with WHO. I did my specialization in public health. Being a doctor, my religion is healing, where you cannot divide people. I have seen as a medical student blood being transfused from one religion to another, when you'd never ask the religion, you ask only the blood group. So that's my religion. That's what I practice also. All other aspects are there. I also have a political position. I was an assembly candidate in the last assembly election of Kerala, and I have my political position. And these positions are based on, can be based on your beliefs or situations, or even can be opportunism that is there. And coming to my presentation proper, we should have discussed what is Sustainable Development Goal first. I know most of you are aware of it, but I'll be dealing with only the health part of it. Can I have the first slide? So this is generally Sustainable Development Goal. There are 17 goals globally, and we had a lot of ambitions to be achieved by 2030, and goal 3 is about health. Next slide. And it focuses on ensuring healthy lives. We all know about it. And promoting well-being for all ages. The objective is to achieve significant progress in key health indicators by 2030. It has a lot of targets also, health, to be achieved by 2030. Whether we are going to achieve is a big issue these days, which we'll discuss. Next. Many objectives. I'm not going to read all these things, and all these are available on the net. So multiple objectives, right from reducing maternal mortality to improve early warning symptoms of health crisis. We talked about mothers. I believe that all mothers are good mothers. I have never seen a bad mother. So if you look at the numbers, last year also 287,000 women died. So all good mothers died. In Indian language, close to 3 lakh mothers died. So that is maternal mortality still that we have. 223 women die among 100,000 live births every year globally. And so that's the kind of situation. So there are a lot of things we wanted to achieve, but we are lagging behind. Who is operating? You are operating, or I am? There are a lot of targets also, which means it's a serious thought how to improve health. A lot of targets to be achieved by 2030. Next. There is a concept called universal health coverage. Universal health coverage means everyone should get affordable health care close to his place, which is not the fact. I have lived in a country called East Timor. I told you that was least developed country, which had no systems when we were there. Here, one snake bite death in our country, or even in my city or my state, becomes a huge news, becomes a big problem, somebody dying due to a snake bite. In East Timor, that was common, because you had to prevent, you had to escape from snakes. You are bitten, you are sure to die. So that's a level of, that's a difference in terms of health. That's a disparity, that's the differences between countries. And I lived in Switzerland. Everything is perfect, perfectly done. They try their level best to practice scientific medicine, and everything is done. So that's a difference. So I am in a short span of, I lived in East Timor. In a few months, I went to Switzerland. I saw the world of difference. We all talk about equality and all, it's not the reality. And we spend more money in wars than in health. And we all talk about better health. But there has been progress. As you know, from 2000, we count a lot of indicators and objectives, and 2015, 2030 we have this Sustainable Development Goal also. There has been progress, especially in terms of fighting diseases, maternal mortality, child mortality. These things are, to a great extent, these are coming towards the direction which we desire. But there has to be a lot of progress. And the UN reports also, which I'll be showing, UN Secretary General's report itself is showing that we are not going to achieve any of these by 2030. That's which is a fact. And COVID was one of the issues which was preventing our progress towards our goals. WHO estimates 80,000 to 180,000 healthcare workers would have died during COVID days. So this has affected, COVID has affected all dimensions of life, but it's not, COVID alone is not the culprit. We were lagging behind. So there are many challenges in achieving Sustainable Development Goal 3 objectives and targets. Maternal mortality, I told you, difficult, very difficult, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Maternal mortality, even in India, we are showing improvement, but there are undesirable or unwanted deaths among mothers and even among kids. Non-communicable diseases is becoming a big problem. Earlier we were fighting with communicable diseases, but still it's a big issue. Can you imagine the number of people getting tuberculosis, which is the biggest infectious disease killer globally? In Indian terms, it is more than 1 crore. 1 crore people get TB globally every year, or more than 10 million, of which 25% is in India. Every year, 27 lakhs or 2.7 million, 2.6, 2.7 million people in India get tuberculosis, which has complete cure, which is theoretically completely curable, but people get it. So medicines alone cannot cure diseases. There are a lot of other social determinants which we need to address. Can you go to the next slide? This is what? Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were not progressing well because we have a lot of other business other than health, including wars. We have to kill people of other countries. Every country wants to kill the neighbor's citizen. And we talk about peace, world peace, while you have peace in one hand and bomb in the other hand. And how much will it cost to achieve SDG 3 targets? You need at least 1 billion to cover immunization. Look at the countries that are going through problems or wars or that kind of uncertainties. Kids are getting diseases and they are dying. Who cares? And non-communicable disease alone will need 7 trillion, not billion, $7 trillion in the next 15 years. So if there is no inaction, millions of children will continue to die. Women will die. And health cost is becoming higher and higher. We call it catastrophic health expenditures. Poor people get many of the diseases. When they get diseases, they become more poor and they get impoverished just because of treatment. We think that even in India, we think that government care is free. Nothing like that. The medical college where I studied, they are giving prescriptions for medicines and equipment to buy from outside, which is considered as a free place for treatment. That's how things are moving. The way forward is always we talk about global collaboration, which is happening to some extent. During COVID, we saw how much money we could mobilize to address a disease, because that was not, COVID was a virus that was not looking at the religion or geography. It was killing everyone. Then people united. All international organizations united, and we had enough money even to come up with a vaccine in a few months. Increase investments in health systems. See, India, we are boasting about our progress. Of course, we have a lot of progress. And that didn't happen one day, it happened in last several decades after independence. But still we spend less than 2%, around 2% in our health, 2% of GDP in health. Whereas America spends 16, 17% of their GDP in health. So you spend something and you see the results. If you don't spend, you see the wrong result. And of course, strengthening primary care. There are people, even this city, the capital city of the most literate state of India, where people don't get care, primary care. And primary hospitals, even the private sector is being replaced by huge tertiary care, quaternary care, 5-star hospital. And we need to have better collaboration, better healthy living styles, all those things are there. And invest in research and development. All these things were happening. That was the positive side effect of COVID. COVID is the only one thing that in the recent years united the world and people wanted to help one another. And COVID is gone and there is war and there is enmity growing. Next. And these are the sites now where you can get all the information. So I got all the information which is available for anyone. Next. Thank you.
Time permits to sit and then have the questions, or if someone wants to ask something. So, okay, let's give a round of applause to Dr. And if you have any particular question, because it's really, with some urgency, so if you want to have some questions, please do it right now. We said that we will stay back for 5 more minutes.
With your opinion, what is the time period it will take to achieve these particular goals?
See, goals are always highly optimistic. You have to have optimistic goals. See, I gave the example of tuberculosis. To end tuberculosis, the global targeted year is 2030. India decided we will do it in 2025. I am sure as a person in public health, we are not going to achieve in 2050. That's the reality. But you have to keep goals at a very high optimistic level. Depends on various areas. Certain things we may achieve earlier, like maternal mortality or child mortality.
Some goals we can able to achieve.
Yeah,
27 it is going in a good way.
yeah. And see, investing in health is the most important thing. If you don't, like a home, if you invest in your children's education, that's what happened. My parents also were government servants. They invested in education. So we grew up. Had they invested in buying property, we would not have done better in education. For a country also, you have to invest in health and education. Otherwise, you will not progress. India is 2% of GDP being spent in health, which is very low.
Any more questions? Otherwise, I have just one comment that it was very good said that the blood has no religion and all these things, only blood group. But I still, as a student of religion, I tell that we are never, arguing for quarreling each other. Don't think that religions are quarreling each other. We always say that, of course, blood is one. We are never doing other things. Rather, we are trying to promote. Religions are not made by any one of us. It's a part of culture. It's an excellence of cultural heritage of our land. And then we try to understand each other. And we work together for, MDGs, SDGs and so on. So don't think that it's an apology. Don't think that religions are making problems. Rather, we also say the same.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't believe that religions create problems. See, doctors are all good. We learn medicine. But we have wrong doctors. We commercialize and certain doctors, because of their wrong practices or wrong behaviors, people are dying or people are not getting the right health. So that's what. Medicine is good, but all doctors don't practice good medicine. So that applies for religion also. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. S.S. Lal. Thank you, Moderator Bishop. So we are so fortunate to have Dr. Yeah? Okay, please.
Thank you. I found your presentation very informative. I'd like to know what is the rate of child mortality in our country. And we read about stunted growth, malnutrition, and things like that taking place even today. So could you throw some light on it? I at the back could not see everything on the board. So I would be obliged. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So my slides are here. If you want, you can collect copy also. See, infant mortality rate last year in India was 26 per thousand. So, which means out of all, that's what I remember, 1,000 live births. Yeah. So it's a problem. Maternal mortality, when it comes to maternal mortality, we count it per 100,000 because it is low. Child mortality is a problem still in India. And many of the deaths are preventable or avoidable deaths. That is also there. So that's about, so all the information is available. And we are making good progress also. In the last year also, there was some decline of some 2%, roughly 2%. That is there. But as I said, health is not just, you cannot, doctor, patient and medicine will not cure. There are a lot of other social determinants which have a lot of influence. And sorry for going early. I wanted to be here to listen to J.S. Adu's and others' presentation. I have a meeting with a parliament member which I cannot miss. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. So we have been enlightened so much this morning regarding the SDG. We will be taking one by one. So now we have Dr. John Samuel with us. Just like Dr. S.S. Lal, he is also a UN personality, worked for long with UNDP in many parts of the world, in United Nations headquarters. And we were so happy to have him in Bangkok when we had the 9th International Holy Books Conference. He inaugurated, he was the Asia Forum Secretary based in Bangkok at that time. We were fortunate to have John Samuel during the last Peace Summit also. So he is well known in all over the world as a prophet of advocacy and also a critique, social critique, always writing so many articles and enlightening us on various aspects of, he was one of the core members who prepared the SDGs. So we are so grateful to you, John Samuel, sir. So please address the audience.
Swamiji Guru Ratnam, His Grace Dr. Givargis Mariulius, the leaders of Interfaith Dialogue, friends, colleagues, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, it's a pleasure to be back here in this very important dialogue for peace and international harmony. I've been associated with the URI, to some extent with the Santhigiri. I remember discovering my dear brother Shashi Kumar when I was on a way to speak at the World Parliament of Religions in the US. And I myself have been a practitioner of interfaith dialogue. Today I would speak about Sustainable Development Goal 16. I had the privilege to be at the United Nations in 2000 when the UN passed what you call Millennium Declaration, which gave rise to 8 Millennium Development Goal. And You know, just let me give a context. United Nations rediscovered in the 1990s as a mediating space. Because till 1990, the Cold War ensured the United Nations was also divided. After 1990s, United Nations rediscovered with the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, and I had the privilege to attend that. And then in 1993 Vienna Conference on Human Rights, 1995 the UN Women's Conference in Beijing, 1996 the Social Development Summit in Copenhagen, 1999 in Durban Conference on Race, Racism, Discrimination, etc. So if you really look at it, all the 1990s, United Nations become the mediating space between four major important players: government, civil society, private sector, and faith-based organizations. So this is a very important role of faith-based organizations were recognized. And in 2000, the Millennium Declaration is for the first time a consensus by all these actors about a vision for the world, how the 21st century should be shaped. So on the basis of that, United Nations Development Program, UNDP, some experts got together in the basement of the UNDP office where I worked, and they created 8 Millennium Development Goals. And the critique was, this 8 Millennium Development Goals were not consulted. It was expert driven. And it took actually 2 to 3 years, and I was a part of the whole process. And we created global call to action is poverty, GCAP, and I was the first global chairman. We were working in 110 countries. So there was a whole lot of campaign. So as a result of that, in 2012, 20 years of the Rio Summit, we had the same, so I was a part of, after 20 years, I was also there. And that is how the Sustainable Development Goals, because Millennium Development Goals was not good. So we created 19 global consultation, and within the UN I was fighting for it. I said, look, we can create something, but unless people have ownership of this, that's why we are discussing it today, here in Trivandrum, in an interfaith dialogue group. So I said, unless we have ownership, so there was 19,000 consultations happened. The good thing about it is, there was a sense of urgency on some of those things. There was a consensus. But the difficult thing was, it has become a wish list. Everybody's wish was there. And just to give you a sense of, I think it's important that I will start with, how do we understand Sustainable Development Goals? I always give this equation when I teach students, 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 2. The first 5 SDGs on poverty, hunger, health, education, and gender inequality. That's the 5. And these 5 are the first generation development. It's very interesting. In India, Niti Aayog, SDG performance, Kerala stands first. And because the first generation development we have addressed. Because here poverty has been reduced to 0.7. There's another joke. Instead of reducing poverty, many people, for last 10 years, they have been changing the definitions of poverty. You change the definitions and the poverty comes down. And that's what, so in Kerala it was 12%, all of a sudden it came 0.7%. And I will also tell the contradiction. In Kerala, 70% of the people go for right to work. 70% of the household. So those who go for right to work are the people who do not have money to survive. So there is such contradictions in what is our understanding of poverty. If you take $1, poverty is 35%, $1 a day. That means less than 80 rupees or 81 rupees. If you take $2, 75% of the people are poor. So the definition is an issue when you talk about SDG. Health, education, and gender equality. And then you move to the second 10, that is 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. They are mostly about socio-economic rights. The second generation development, about water, about sanitations, about jobs, and it ends with inequality. The third generation development SDGs is about environment. 11 is about sustainable cities. I don't need PowerPoint because I know these by hearts, if you ask me, because I was involved in making it when I was the director of the UNDP Governance Assessment. So it's about environment, climate change, life underwater, life on earth. At these 5, that is the third generation development. So when it comes to that second generation development and third generation development, Kerala, which is doing very well on first generation development, is weak. This is also we need to understand how do you understand SDG. The SDG 16 and 17, that's what a 5 plus 5 plus 5, first generation development, second generation development, environmental protection and climate justice. The next 2 are enabling rights, right? And the 16, of which I will be explaining, is about peace, justice, governance, and human rights, right? And 17 is about international partnership, and you need money for this. So this is, I think it's important to have a sense of history, how this all started and why it is. Why it is? You know, it is like a railway timetable. The train is supposed to come at 8 o'clock, but it can come at 9 o'clock also. Then we know it is late by 1 hour. Right? If you don't have a timetable, it will be anarchy. You do not know when the train is coming. You know when the train is coming at 8 o'clock, but you know that the train may come at 9 o'clock or even 9:30. So you can say we are late by, train is late by 1 hour. You know that train is running late by 20 minutes. Development SDGs story is also like that. Because unless we have a shared sense of framework, we cannot compare anything. Right? It's the same thing with the religion also. You know, when we have, I have talked about holy books on Bhagavad Gita and Bible and the Quran, etc., and Dhammapada. Now, in this religion, if there is nothing, if there is not a shared framework, you cannot have interfaith dialogue. Development is also, SDG is about shared sense of framework, a policy framework. And when you say SDG, you have to understand SDGs as target and indicators. So it is measurable. That's the second part of SDGs. If it is not measurable, it doesn't matter. Right? So now let us come to the real facts. As I speak now, there are 32 conflicts happening in the world. It's how also international press, cover it. When the Gaza was happening, it was every day on the newspaper. In Kerala, there were lots of protest rallies. Now still Gaza is happening, it has fell out of map. But the most, Gaza, this still, church was bombed, one of the oldest Orthodox church. Hospital was bombed. Now nobody is bothered. In Kerala, it was funny. I was just telling that, in 1 week there were so many protests, and these are all to do with number of identity politics of various types. Now nobody is bothered. Ethiopia, if you know Ethiopia, last year more than 120,000 people were, 20,000, that means 1.2 lakhs people were killed. And that did even become a news. Right? Gaza and that many people died. When, 1.5 lakhs people in Ethiopia. You go to Yemen, right? You go to Somalia. You go to Myanmar. Myanmar, as I speak now, there were 9 conflicts. There are 9 conflicts. Now we don't talk about Rohingya at all. I remember speaking at the United Nations about Rohingya crisis. Now, almost 1 million Rohingya people are in Bangladesh. As I speak now, more than 110 million people are displaced. Migrations, because of war, because of poverty, people are migrating. So we are living in a very paradoxical time. There's a Chinese saying, when you speak more about something, it is precisely absent. Right? The more we speak about peace, that means the less peace is done. Now, if you really look at the 12 targets and indicators, it's very interesting. In some of the indicators, there is no data. Violence against children, it's increasing. Poverty. Despite all those things, 800 million people go to bed hungry every day. And this country, we are talking about, India is growing, India is shining, India is vibrant. The largest number of poor people are in our country. Right? And poverty is a sign of inequality and injustice. Because the people who are poor happen to be Dalits, Adivasis. In India it's because of caste, otherwise it's because of race. The people in the American jails, most of them happen to be, the color is black. They're Africans. The people, the under trials in Indian jails also has religion and color. So poverty is not a colorless, odorless gas. Poverty is about human beings. Poverty is not about statistics. It's about lives. That's why I don't use PowerPoint or statistics. Because statistics can tell a lot of lies. It can be covered. I always used to tell, I've said it, what you see depending on where you stand. If you stand at the 14th floor of the United Nations, that was my office in New York, poverty is pie chart and PowerPoints and, numbers. But if you really go to a village in Madhya Pradesh or Attapadi here, poverty is about human beings. And then you realize poverty has caste, race and religion as well. The minorities across the globe are marginalized. In Philippines, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in China, everywhere. Migrant people are seen with suspicion across Europe. So we are not talking about hunky-dory things. We are living in difficult times. Human rights have become a bad word. I became a human rights activist fighting against emergency as a teenager. Still believe in human rights because every religion, whether it is Christianity, Islam, Parsi or Buddha, is based on the idea of dignity of human being. Actually, dignity of human being comes from the divinity of human being. So many people think that human rights is a secular framework. It has a deep ethical, religious connotations because the dignity of human beings. So if you look at Semitic religion, God created man in his own image. So the divinity, and this is Islam. If you look at Buddhist, version of what is humanism. So dignity and divinity are connected. And based on the dignity, all human rights are inalienable. So all the United Nations, one of the major thing is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. and the UN Convention against torture. But what's happening is, even today, police has become a means of torturing the people. Those who are trying to protect army in many places commit rape on women. So we are living in a very, very difficult times. Human rights are violated, and you are creating a nationalistic, jingoist worldview saying that human rights are international and universal, and what matters is not human rights, what matters is hyper-nationalism of the rich and the powerful who was captured. The crony capitalists and the political elites often capture the state. And when you come to governance, one of the most indicators is corruption. Rent seeking has been institutionalized, not only here, across the world. Because there is a nexus between crony capitalism and the political process. The rich people fund the politics, and politicians spend the money. Those who have more money get elected. So it's an investment on return. So as a result, governance is being undermined. The idea of governance is, the government and governance is different. Government is an institutional framework of power. Governance is the interface between people and government, private sector, faith-based groups. It is the interface between government and those who are governed. That is governance. So governance is the process of how, and it is the notion of power with. Government is based on often the power over. We translate in democracy is translated in Malayalam as Janadhipatyam. That's a wrong word. I am the one probably who introduced the word called Janayattam. If I say Janayattam and Janadhipatyam, Adhipatyam is basically the power over. Right? Power over. Adhipatyam. So when you get people's vote, but when you get vote, you dominate people. For the vote, they will, folded hands, they will come and seek vote. Once they get in power, we go to them with the folded hands. It's a semi-feudal system. So governance has not only corruption as an issue, but also in India and many places, it's a semi-feudal power system. They are feudal. Right? Once the power is seen as privilege. So governance is not inclusive. So SDG 16 say it has to be inclusive, it has to be peaceful, it has to be justice, and it is based on human rights. And that accountable governance institution means there is no corruption, there is transparency, etc. This is an ideal world. It's heaven if we have all these things. But we don't have. Hence, I am sort of coming to my conclusion. Without justice, there is no peace. Without justice, there is no peace. Wherever there is an injustice, and injustice mostly happen in our homes, not only states. The way you deal with your partner, violence against women and children, and the statistics says most of the children are sexually violated, girls, children, in their own homes by relatives. So the violation of human rights and violation of justice happens in our own. That is patriarchy. Unless you change and challenge patriarchy, a patriarchal system, you cannot have justice because it's an unjust system. That's number one. Second thing is being inclusive. We are doing an exclusive society of a majoritarian politics. Democracy is not about majority. Democracy is about equal value for every human being, equal rights for every human being. And democracy is about what Gandhi said. The last person will be able to speak out. Undo this last. Gandhi's famous book, he translated it as Sarvodaya. It is from Bible, Matthew chapter 20. I think verses 13 or 14. That undo this last. Democracy is about undo this last. SDG is saying that it is undo this last. If you are not inclusive, it is undemocratic. Whether you are Muslims, or Christians, or Buddhists, or sexual minority, the moment they are excluded, it's not democracy, there is no human rights. So friends, I think faith-based groups have a lot of things to do. Because actually many people say in Europe people don't go to church. Then I asked, my son is just finished his PhD, and when he went to the government to register for PR in Germany, so they said, what's your religion? He said, Christian. No, don't write it. He said, why? He said, no religion. Because you put the religion, there is a tax. Right? In Europe, there is, if you put, so most of the people don't, it's not that they don't believe in it. So when the statistics says in Europe, most of the people don't believe in religion, means they don't want to give tax to the government because they belong to a religion. So, and another major misconception is all the churches are being closed. It's because in 19th and 18th century, in London or in Paris, churches, there was motor cars, there was no motor car, there was no train, nothing else. So the churches in the city center, they didn't have parking space. And usually the government take over it, and the government give you another accommodation. And if you are a Lutheran, if you are a Protestant, the God is not in the church. Right, if you know. So they gave you another church with parking lot, and this church get auctioned and it become a shop or the conference hall or a bar. Because many people do not know the theology of it, the Protestant theology. Many people do not know the governance process. So they say all churches are being closed and they become bars. When I lived in Europe, I knew that what was happening. So there are lots of misconceptions about religion. The best of religion is about ethics. It's about social ethics based on an understanding of a world within us, a world around us, and a world beyond us. So what religion connects is the world within us to a world around us and a world beyond us. That's what the best of religious, that's what I'm a believer. Going to church or temple is not by belief. If your internal world is coherent, based on a notion of internal, a peace that surpasses all knowledge. That is Saint Paul said. In Malayalam we say, Sagala buddhiyayum kaviyunna samadhanam. Sagala buddhiyayum kaviyunna samadhanam. That is what Antonio Gramsci said. The pessimism of the intellect is the optimism of the will. So I think in this interfaith dialogue, when you talk about SDG 60, about peace, justice and human rights, each and every one of us have a commitment to celebrate the dignity of every human being, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, gender and nationality. And every religion, having read almost all the religious texts for years, comparative religion, what I know is, at the core of every religion is, understanding the equality of human beings. Equality before God, equality before, we are all created. 70,000 years ago, cognitive revolution happened. And in this revolution, one thing is evolved is different religious experience. Religion as politics exclude people. Religion as experience connects people. I hope today, let's connect human rights, social justice, equality, peace through this interfaith dialogue. I wanted to congratulate all the organizers for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We are so grateful to Mr. John Samuel. He is also known as J.S. Adur, and he writes in newspapers with this name. So there, I know only one person in Kerala where All international organizations are after him to have him as the director. So that is J.S. Adur or John Samuel. You might have understood from his talk how much he is contributing to all these SDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals and common goals of humanity. So we are just lagging behind our schedule, but we will have tea now, 15 minutes. So please take 15 minutes, have your tea and come back so that we have to continue the same session. Thank you so much.